everyone feels very refreshed after a month of May. And now that we're all back getting to work, working out, and getting stuff going, I think everyone's excited, everyone's refreshed, and we're ready to go.
All right, welcome in. That was Cade McNamara on the In the Trenches pod. He's ready to go. They're getting ready to go. We're ready to go here on this Thursday. Dennis Fithian along with Jim Scarcelli, the former Wolverine and Scar. Good to see you. What do you think, Cade McNamara, saying the guys are refreshed, hitting the ground running here, ready to go?
Sounds like he's fired up. They're working hard. Sounds like a confident guy, but he knows the challenges will be great.
What do we call June? The summer phase, even though it isn't really summer until June 21st?
Mentally as a player, when I think about the month of June, yeah, you're lifting, you're running, you've got team workouts, you're running together, lifting. There's a lot of energy in the weight room, and the season is close. You're getting your mind and your body ready for the challenges when you start putting the pads on. But there's a lot of energy and a lot going on. To individually with each player in terms of where they where they stand in the pecking order, and they know either they're starters, they want to maintain their position. They're a young guy, they want to take someone's position, and those are the things that you're thinking about as a player.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the word energy. When I heard it last year, I don't want to say I rolled my eyes, but I've heard enough players and coaches out of camp, saying, oh, yeah, this year's going to be different. We're really hitting those sleds, and everybody's got a little jump in their step. So you hear that almost annually. But, last year, when you'd hear Michigan football players talk or coaches, they all were saying the same thing. They're saying the energy is incredible. I'm like, okay, that's great. Energy is incredible. But, they continued to say that. And then you listen to them after the season, after they won the Big Ten, and they were going back and reflecting. Cade McNamara won, Aiden Hutchinson, almost to a man, any of the coaches, they still were going back and saying, you could really detect it back in spring, the energy that the new staff and the players had, and they were playing music. And so I like to hear that. We're not going to call it a buzzword, but I like to hear that from former players and players since obviously it worked last year. I like to hear that word energy.
Let me real quick though, Danny, you got to have it all though. You got to have great players. You got to have great coaching. You got to have, nobody getting injured. They had all that last year. Energy is one of many factors. Yeah. So, let's just put it in perspective. So we got that part accomplished, and let's hope these guys step up. All these guys that are filling key positions, they got to step up.
Yeah, you can say that, but they did get hit with injuries. I'll say that one of their most important players, we play this game every offseason and say, what player can they least afford to lose? Usually you go to the quarterback position. I don't think you would say that with this year's team because they got two pretty good ones. But last year, if somebody said, hey, Ronnie Bell, he's really the only proven guy that they have at wide receiver, I think, hey, that's a pretty good that's pretty good. They lost some of their interior offensive linemen. I think that their best one, and Zach Zinter was banged up. I think Keegan was banged up. Now I think Blake Corum, missed a couple games in there. I don't know. You're going to have some injuries, but they didn't get I don't know if they were the cleanest that they've ever been in terms of the injury bug. Maybe, games lost to manpower or something like that. Maybe they did.
Yeah, we did have some guys go down, and we play. I think the Nebraska game, I think we played 5 guards in that game with all the injuries. That's just a sign of good coaching. That's a sign of good recruiting. That's a sign of coaches that develop depth, that are smart enough to do it. That's why you need these preseason games, to play a lot of guys so you're ready when you get that game where you got to put guys in that hadn't played much. And I think we have a full. We have great depth, I think, at all of our positions. What I observed going to practice the one day I went, I think we have a great deal of depth at every single position for Michigan.
Yeah, and they lost the game, and you could actually point to the quarterback rotation if you want. I know a few people did when they lost to Michigan State, but you could make the case that Cade McNamara was getting thrown around like a rag doll a couple times there in the second half, and that he got his bell rung, and he may not have been available to go back into the game actually when they inserted J.J. McCarthy. And if they hadn't been doing the, giving him a couple snaps here and there, who knows what would have happened. Now, like I said, they ended up losing that game, but they may have had a little plan there for the injuries when it came down to the rotation of quarterbacks. But, Scar, we've got a lot to talk about today here, it being June the 9th. We'd like to welcome everybody into Maize and Blue Review, Michigan Today. We talk football, basketball. We talk anything that's going on in Michigan, college football, sometimes sprinkling some stuff on the pros. But we're live weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And Scar has got a list that he has put together, and it is Scar's Big Ten Sustained Success Rankings. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into it. Just a little bit of tease, because in 5 minutes, we are going to start ranking them. How did you do this?
Well, I made my list on difficulty of winning, of building and maintaining a championship team. Okay, we got 14 teams in the Big Ten, and everybody faces different challenges. And because of all the things that are going on, the 7 things I evaluated it on was current talent that they have, the schedule they play, how well are they doing in NIL, in my opinion, the ability to recruit, the tradition, transfer standards. Transfer standards are big. Can they bring guys in? And then the academics. Those were the 7 categories I used to rank in terms of which schools have it tougher to build a program and which schools have it the easiest. If I became a head, someone could, you're a head coach and you got to build this team. There's certain schools that have bigger challenges than others. And that's what I wanted to go over with you here. And, just give some thoughts, get people thinking about who I think has it easier to build a program and who has it the most difficult.
I like it. It sounds interesting, and it sounds fun. Stay right where you're at, Scar, because before we go any further, I want to tell everybody about our sponsor. And support for Maize and Blue Review is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools. And why not join me and Scar and over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you: 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TMBR at manscaped.com. Last weekend, I went to a graduation. I went to a graduation party, and I slipped a little cash. Actually, sent a Cash App, Venmo, I think actually it was, to one of the grads, but both ended up getting the Manscaped's Performance Package, the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle. They'll remember that and remember me forever. It's a great gift for anyone, and specifically graduates. So get 20% off, free shipping with the code TMBR at manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use that code TMBR and unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And I know, Scar, you got one of those bundles in the mail. What'd you think of it?
Outstanding. That's a great gift. Get things cleaned up properly. Get Manscaped.
There you go. Well, let's get and put the big board up there of things that we're going to be talking about. We mentioned that we will go over Scar's Big Ten football sustained success rankings. Also, a big-time announcement coming up for a local quarterback out of Saline, whose last name is Carr. And we're just going to have to ask, I'll try to limit it to 5 questions for you, Scar, surrounding CJ Carr and everything that goes into commitments and rankings and evaluations and a local kid versus an out-of-state kid and all of those kind of things. So hang on to your hat. We will get to that. But let's start with these sustained success rankings. And if you're just stopping by, a bunch of different factors, talent, the name, image, and likeness, a schedule, the academic portion, the transfer portal, the ease of being able to get players through that. And Scar ranked them. Are you going to start at 14 and go to 1? Or are you going to go
I'm going to tell you the last job I want. The most difficult job is Indiana. Okay, they don't have a great deal of talent. And the biggest reason is schedule too, though. They are in the East. They play Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State every year. So that's why I have them at the top. They don't have a great tradition. It's tough to recruit. They got to recruit against Penn State and Notre Dame in state. So it's hard. They don't have I haven't heard much about their NIL. It's a pretty tough school. They brought some transfers in. It's probably not brutally hard to bring transfers, but the main reason I have that job as the hardest job in the Big Ten is because of schedule and because of geography. The next one down is Rutgers. Same reasons. Not a great tradition. They got to face all the big boys in the East. So schedule is again. Now if they get it going there, they could really get the state of New Jersey and New York. They could lock it up if they got that program going. Okay, I got Maryland as the third toughest place. Same thing. They play in the toughest. They got the toughest schedule. They play in the toughest division. Average tradition. But if they have a recruiting base that really has a lot of athletes, and I've got them as my third toughest to build. And the fourth one is now we go to the other division. I got Northwestern as the fourth toughest. Now they play in the West, which is easier, but they got tough academics, real tough academics, Denny. Hard to get kids in sometimes. There's a lot of players they can't even bother recruiting because it's tough for them to get them in. Now, I just wanted to throw those first four at you and let you comment on them. Then I'll review them. I'll go continue down the list.
Yeah, I get it. When you're talking about in the East of the teams that you have to play, I get that. The interesting thing about all of those teams is that you go through from Fitzgerald and Mike Loxley and really Allen at Indiana. You have a lot of good football coaches at those places. So if they are ever going to be able to get it done, you would think that at least they have the coaches in place where they might be able to do something. And I would even put Greg Schiano's a pretty good coach there at Rutgers as well. So all four of those teams that you mentioned, I get it with geography, I get it with tradition, I get it with name, image, and likeness. But Pat Fitzgerald and the academics that he has to deal with, all of those, I think Fitzgerald's the best coach in the Big Ten.
I mean, you could make the argument, yeah. If you plug Pat Fitzgerald in over at Ohio State, he's winning in a minute, no question. I'd rather face Day in a minute before Pat Fitzgerald with that talent. In a minute. So that's why when I make my rankings, I tell about I'm not talking about the quality of coach. I'm talking about how difficult it is to win at different places. Let me continue down the list. I've got Illinois as the fifth most difficult place to win. Not a great tradition. I've been on that campus. Purdue is the next one. The reason I have Purdue is easier than Indiana, even though they're in the same state. They got the same kind of tradition. Purdue doesn't have that schedule. No. Illinois doesn't play that schedule. They play on the West. I got Minnesota next on down. He's got good talent. He's the only school in that state. That helps him. I got Iowa next on down the line. Same thing. Only school going on. Great tradition. Not many good talent. I've got Wisconsin as my next team down. Wisconsin has, it's good academics, but the only school in the state. Penn State is then my 10th team, and because they got the great tradition, they got really good players, and that's where I'm at in the middle six. Go ahead, Danny, comment on them, then I'll get into my final four.
Yeah, well, if you're listening to this, because I think, wow, Penn State, maybe you'd want them a little bit higher, but when you get to the very top, you got to remember, because you're thinking about talent and tradition and schedule and the transfer portal and academics and name, image, and likeness. So remember, it's not just who's the best school right now, and so you're factoring in all of those different things. So
let me finish up my list, Denny. So
right.
this is difficulty to build and maintain a program. I've got Michigan as the 11th team because the reason I don't have them is, even though we have the great tradition, even though we have great talent, and we can recruit like crazy, okay, and I have us not as high because of the difficulty bringing undergraduate transfers in. That makes it hard for Michigan. And that's why I'm going to get to the guys that have it easiest next. But Michigan's difficulty bringing undergraduate transfer in is a disadvantage for Michigan. And I have not heard us, what we're doing with NIL at the level of some of these other people that I'm going to talk about. So NIL and transfers is why the Michigan job is not the easiest job. I have Nebraska as my 12th easiest job, or the third easiest, because I'm going from difficult to hard. Easy. Nebraska they're the only school in the state. They got great tradition. Their academics, they can bring anybody in. He's brought a ton of transfers in already. So they've got good NIL, and they've got the ability to bring transfers in, undergraduate transfers, and he's brought a ton in. I think he's got like 18, 20 of them. Mm-hmm. So that's the third easiest place to win, Nebraska. They're in the Western Conference. I've got Michigan State as the second easiest place to win because they got tradition, they got some talent, but the main two reasons are the NIL. You got Matt, big money, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, giving $500. How do you say it?
Ishbia.
Ishbia is giving out $500 for every football player on that team, and that matters. That makes the Michigan State job easier to build, easier to recruit. And they can bring in transfers that Michigan could never bring in a million years. They can bring undergraduate transfers in, and we cannot do it. And there's a lot of schools in the Big Ten that cannot do it as easily as Michigan State. And I've got Ohio State as the easiest place to win because they got the most talent right now. They got a lot of NIL money. They've got tradition. Their academics, it makes it easy to get guys in, and so I've got the Ohio State job as the easiest place for, they got good talent. And I think any coach in the Big Ten with that talent would win. And that's why I want to keep Ryan Day there, because I think he's one of the average at best coaches. He's just born on third base, Denny.
Well, we're going to see if the Empire strikes back this year or not. But right now, you can go ahead and you can put your foot right on his neck and stomp on it. Yeah, it's interesting because in college football, the way the landscape changes, I think Michigan State's an interesting one because there's a way that, listening to you think, man, they're sleeping giants. Think about all the things that they got going for them. And they have, once D'Antonio got there, they did perk up, obviously. And Mel Tucker's got him 2-0 against Michigan. He looks like he's doing pretty good. And obviously he's going to be there for a few years with that money that they gave him. But I think when Michigan State, they get some good players, but they have not sat there and rang the bell left and right when it comes down to recruiting. I don't know how many top 25 classes that they've had. D'Antonio, he ended up being as good as he was because he could turn water into wine. He was never, getting top 10 classes. I don't even know if he'd get top 25 classes, maybe one here or there. And, Tucker's doing all right now. And I know, like, name, image, and likeness, maybe that's going to help him, but they got to recruit against Notre Dame. They got to recruit in-state against Michigan State, Ohio State to the south. They're in a tough spot when it comes to recruiting. So I'm not so sure. And they do have to play all those other teams in the Big Ten East. So putting them up that high, maybe I would drop them down with the ease of sustained success that you're talking about there. But it's tough to rank the teams. I hear what you're saying, and I could argue, and we don't know. Michigan's a little bit mysterious when it comes down to name, image, and likeness. I know you saw the quote from Jim Harbaugh when other coaches were talking about $30 million and Day was talking about $13 million. Harbaugh was talking about Michigan's going to be transformational in their experience and not transactional, which a lot of people equated to they're not going to be getting involved in paying these recruits. So we just have to see. Now, Harbaugh could be playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. He may be saying one thing, but when he comes to, face-to-face and he's talking to these kids, he's going to look, you can make more money at Michigan than you can anywhere else. And here's the examples. Here are the cars. Here's the money. and he just might be talking about this. But we're going to see. They're in after some big-time players. If they get him, Harbaugh's saying one thing to the media, and they're saying one other thing to the players. So we just got to see how that plays out. But, on the surface of it, there's a question mark with Michigan name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, we really don't know. We just don't know. Okay, but what I do know is that Michigan State is giving every guy, okay, not just the big-time guys that score touchdowns. You can be a third-string offensive tackle, and you're getting $500 a month. I agree with you that they haven't won the recruiting battle, in D'Antonio's years. But I'm concerned about where we are now. And if I'm a coach from, I was that recruit who was recruited by Michigan and Michigan State. And if the Michigan guy comes in to see me and we're talking, he's got this, and this. Okay, great. And I hear the Michigan State guy, we got this, and this, plus $500 a month. Well, that makes it. Those are the questions I want to know the answers to. So that's why I have Michigan State as a place that is easier to build and easier to maintain, because they can bring in transfers and the NIL. It's already publicly out there. They're giving five. It's not, again, if I'm sitting in that locker room, okay, there's 22 starters, but there's 60 some guys that are on scholarship that aren't big time players, that aren't scoring touchdowns. And are they going to have an access to some of that NIL money? And now we're all sitting there, and that third string guard he's getting $500 just like me as a backup defensive tackle or third string secondary guy. And those things matter, because those kids aren't going to be backups forever. And again, these are things I'm concerned with, that we can maintain and build and recruit against these guys. So that's why I have them as an easy place to build and win.
It's good stuff. I know from the Michigan standpoint, when they have brought in some different players here via the transfer portal, but they could be grad transfers.
Yeah.
Canada.
Nice. Yep.
Oluwatimi, at center there. The basketball team has done a pretty good job being able to pull some guys in. But you're right. It is if the pool of players, because of your transfer credit, it is like this for everyone else, and for you, it's down here. I mean, that is going to be a disadvantage.
You just, and Michigan people, Notre Dame people, Northwestern people, Stanford people, we just got to accept it. We have to accept it. We're not going to compromise. We're not going to weaken our standards on transfers, and that's just part of what you have to understand when you take a job at those schools. That's just what it is. You have to accept it. You have to understand it. And but it doesn't make it easier for the upside is the guy that's really an academic achiever and wants that great challenge. Yeah, we're going to have a better chance to recruit those kids. So there's an upside to it, but there's also a downside.
There was a series by Brandon Justice on Maize and Blue Review. He talked with one of the regents from Michigan, and it wasn't spelled out completely, but there is something in the possibility of a program that you can get in if you want to get those transfer credits and how to. But it's jumping through more hoops. It is more difficult. Like what you're saying, it's not just hitting the button and you're in. You're gonna have to.
Denny, I was told, I don't know how accurate this is. A source told me that when Patterson transferred from Ole Miss, he had to waste a ton of credits that Michigan wouldn't accept coming from Ole Miss. So he had to make a big commitment academically. It set him way back. I don't know how true that is. This was a pretty good source that told me that, though. But and that's a disadvantage. We lost the kid that went to Texas or from Texas Tech, our basketball team. We don't know how much of his decision was based on the fact that a lot of his transfers, his credits wouldn't transfer. I don't know the answer to that question, but I got to believe, there's those things are out there.
Now, I heard that about Shea myself. Yeah, if you're somebody that jumps around the colleges, junior colleges, everything else, I know going all the way back to my experience, going to the University of Maryland European Division, I got that associate's degree. I thought I would just roll into the state of Michigan. I'd be like, all right, I just got 2 years. But even at Eastern Michigan, they looked at the transcript. They're like, we're not taking this class. We're not taking that class. So I always say, I may have gone to college for 7 years, but I'm no doctor. I think I went full time for 7 years and just got that, Bachelor of Arts. So, all right, that's for another time, describing my college academic career. Scar, that's a great list. That was fun to go through. I want to go back to the point that we were talking about with CJ Carr, and everyone by now knows the situation with Carr, his mom and dad, his grandfathers, all of that. I don't know if there's ever been a more what you would call Michigan man than CJ Carr. And yet, if we are to believe what's going to happen tonight, he is going to pick Notre Dame as the school he's going to go to. I wanted to ask you, because things happen. You don't always go, even though you're maize and blue through and through. It doesn't always happen. Like you would say that you would have thought all along that this kid, if he was, a big time quarterback, he would have been going to Michigan. So it is strange that he's not going in here. But, I wanted to ask you, like Carr's ranked third in Rivals quarterback rankings. And the kid, Davis, is ranked number one. A lot of the gurus think he's going to Michigan. They have, put their forecast in for him. The number 2 ranked quarterback there is a kid out of California named Sayan. Michigan's offered him, and, he's been on campus. I remember when the Masters was going on, Harbaugh was down there in Georgia and had a telephone call with him. I had a call with him. So the thing to me is, is there a chance, like if you and I are on the Michigan staff and we're talking about freshmen and sophomore quarterbacks, are we going to evaluate them and say, hey, this is my 1, this is my 2, this is my 3, and then you go out there and you'll say, hey, this is my 1, this is my 2, my 3, and then you have the recruiting coordinator, and then you have Harbaugh, and then they do have a board. They're going to rank them. Is that how it works, Gar?
I got some experience in this too, because I've been in it a long time, and I remember when my brother was getting recruited, Bo showed him a board where he stood on the board, but yeah, that's basically how they do it. Denny is a school. Let's just take Michigan. Let's say they want to sign. Say they want to sign two offensive guards. I'm going to give you a story. I had a guy that I played with that I actually showed around on his recruiting trip, John Vitale, ended up being a great player. John came on his recruiting trip with 2 other guys from De La Salle. There was a kid named Bud Garrett, a kid named Keith Karpinski, and John Vitale. And John was a guy that they didn't offer on his recruiting visit. They offered the other 2 guys. And the other one guy was a defensive tackle, the other guy was a linebacker. But Garrett came to Michigan. He never played. He quit after a couple of years. Karpinski went to Penn State, had a good career. But anyway, John, he didn't get the offer until the day before the signing day. So he what Bo told his dad was, look, we like your son, but we've offered these other 2 guys. He's the 3rd one on our list. And if they both decide to come, then you're not going to have a scholarship. We won't have a scholarship for you. But if one of them decide not to come, you are the 3rd guy on our list. So in many cases, that's how it works for almost all the positions. They will have their first guy that they've offered that already have offers now. And then there's a lot of other guys that they're evaluating. And then the closer they get the signing date, they might start offering some more of these, these 2nd-tier guys that, listen, if this guy doesn't take our offer, we're going to give him until such and such a date. We'll have that offer for you. So I don't know if I explained it properly, but anyway, John Vitale got the call the night before signing day, and he ended up being the best player of all of them. He was an All-American. So,
yeah, one of the great players in Michigan history, John Vitale. What if they offered Davis, if they offered Sayan, and if they offered Carr, will they send their offer out first? Like if they have Justin Davis, if he was number 1 on their, are they calling him first and saying, hey, we're offering you first because you're number 1 on our board? And then they're, after they get done with him, then they pick up the phone and then they're offering Sayan, maybe the same day, maybe different days. And then are they calling Carr up and saying, hey, we've offered 2 quarterbacks in front of you. They're in front of you on the board, but we're offering you. Does that mean that Carr could just have said right then, Yeah, I'm taking it. I don't care. I'm ready to jump right now. I mean, how does that work?
No, Danny, I think those kind of guys are different situations because there might be 3 quarterbacks that are top kids in the class of 24, which Carr is, right? He's one of the top 24 kids. Michigan may tell 3 of those kids, we have a scholarship for you right now. The first guy to act is getting it. You know what I mean? It's a little different situation. All of them have been offered, and they've told all of them that the first guy to accept the offer is we're going to take. So that's kind of a different situation than the guys who have not been offered and they get a call late before the signing day. So, do you understand the difference?
Yeah, I do. I like it. Tell me a little bit about what you think is. There's a lot of fans saying, "How could the ultimate Michigan man not be going to Michigan?" What do you say?
Every man is his own man, Denny, and I totally understand CJ Carr going wherever he wants. I know his dad, great man, high integrity, great coach. I know his father, Jason. I remember Jason as a young kid. I coached against him when he was a player at Catholic Central, and he played at Michigan, and then he became a college coach. So I know his dad well, and great people. And from what I know of those guys, his grandpa and his dad, they're going to tell that kid, CJ, you be your own man. You blaze your own trail. You don't have to do what we did. You can if you want, but you don't have to. So I totally understand that. I've shared before. My brother went to Illinois, and it was totally different from me. I went to Michigan. There's no reason he has to go to Michigan. I just, he's going to take his recruiting visit, and maybe he had a comfort level at at Notre Dame. And then you got to also understand something you and I couldn't, and it was different for me, and you and I couldn't relate to it. But he will always be, Jason Carr's son and Coach Carr's grandson if he goes to Michigan. He's always going to have that narrative, always hanging, always around. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with that. Maybe he wants to start over and start fresh. But he knows there's going to be competition everywhere because he knows college football because his dad was a coach. So he knows no matter where the heck he goes, he's going to have to battle like heck to compete and get a spot. But I in no way, shape, or form would expect him to do anything, or I would not expect to be able to predict what he's going to do. Put it that way. I have no idea. He's his own man. He's got to blaze his own trail. And I bet you that's exactly what his dad told him.
Yeah, I think all that stuff sounds true. It's just from the outside looking in, it's strange because if there was ever going to be a guy that would, you'd say for sure was going to be a Michigan man, it would be this particular Michigan man. But if there were different circumstances, like if Michigan was in dire need of a quarterback, they had not had the season that they had last year. I think the outside pressure and just how the freak out level of people would be a lot more. I still think there's some of that, and it's going to happen. You're going to have that for 24 hours. You're going to have that for a week. You're always going to have those questions. Those kind of things happen. Like if you want to talk to reasonable college football fans, at the end of the day, they understand that it's a kid's choice. But look, we're talking like people are fanatics, when it comes down to it. So they freak out, and they will over the next 48 hours, and they will at different times when it comes to CJ Carr. But
yeah, Danny, we don't know what Coach Freeman told them. We don't know what that depth chart looks like. We know that
they have a true sophomore that's starting right now. We do know that. I mean, we know what the depth chart looks. We don't actually know what we're promising.
Yeah, and we don't know.
We do know some things.
Yeah, but I don't know what Notre Dame's quarterback situation is. You said they had a sophomore that started.
They had a guy that was a redshirt freshman that was starting for him last year, and he's coming back. He's like,
he didn't look very good. The kid that replaced the Wisconsin transfer. So I don't. I know when I was getting recruited, I looked at some of the stuff. I looked at some of the depth charts. And maybe he, I don't know what he's seeing at Michigan. And I just. Hey, look, there's still a chance the kid might come to Michigan. I don't know.
No, you're right.
I'm just trying to present to our listeners that I've been in that in that situation to some extent, with my brother or this, that, or whatever. And it depends on the kid. I mean, you and I have a mutual friend whose dad played at Michigan, played in the late 40s in a big Hoss, and Hoss was locked in. He was coming to Michigan after they offered him. So
Hoss could have went to Wisconsin if he wanted to.
That's right. Hoss could have gone to a lot of schools. But the legend, the pride of Trenton, our buddy John Gindia, he chose the same path as his dad. He was on a different mindset than maybe some kids. Some guys want to blaze their own trail. Some guys want to follow dad, uncle, whoever. It depends on the kid, man. It's just like, it's just like looking at a woman, man. We all got different tastes, and you just don't know how a kid is going to what his values are. What does he want to do? So hard to predict, man.
It is. Recruiting is fascinating. As soon as you think you might know something, you try following it and pinning something down, you'll get a big left turn. And I have seen cases, and I'm not saying this is going to be the case with CJ Carr, but I have seen cases where guys are, everybody's predicted like, hey, he's going Notre Dame. I've seen situations where guys go to bed and they're gold, and they wake up and they're blue. I mean, I've seen that. I've heard of it. I've seen it. It does happen. We'll see if it happens in this situation. He's making his announcement tonight. But the soft landing here for Michigan fans, like I said, there would be a lot more chatter about it. And I don't know how reasonable everybody would be if Michigan wasn't the Big Ten champs, if they didn't have a great situation in their quarterback room right now. Like next year, Michigan's got, if they don't have the best quarterback room in the country, they've got one of the best. They've got the starting Big Ten champ, and they got J.J. McCarthy. The next 2, maybe even 3 years, they could possibly have those two there. So it's an excellent room. They're in with a chance with Dante Moore, who I think would be one of the highest rated quarterbacks that they had ever got if they were able to get a commitment from Moore. So they're in with a chance with him. And then if you look to the two guys that are ranked above CJ Carr in the 24 class, Sand from California and the kid Jaden Davis, there's already a forecast, a couple of them for Davis, the number 1 pro-style quarterback in 24 to Michigan. So, there's not a lot for Michigan. Like they could be like, wait, what's going on here? But then, hey, things are still looking pretty good for the Maize and Blue.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out, man. And I just there's so many things that Carr has to weigh that other recruits don't. That whole shadow of that last name. Is that something a kid wants to deal with? And that's something that, our listeners have to understand. Put yourself in that kid's shoes, and to have to deal with that kind of, burden, shadow, legacy, however you want to word it. But I hope he makes the right decision that works out best for him.
Well, what I hope is that Michigan ends up seeing Notre Dame in the college football playoffs in 3 years. And, Michigan either has J.J. McCarthy or Dante Moore coming out at quarterback. And I hope C.J. Carr is on the other side. And Lloyd Carr somehow and Tammy and Jason are sitting over there, wearing Fighting Irish clothes. That would be something. Yeah, I bet the cameras would pick that up. A Lloyd Carr and a Notre Dame hat, Scar.
That's right. Let's we get there. That's a great thing for Michigan.
That's right. It would be a great thing. Let's even advance a little bit further. Let's have them play in the national championship game, because we know they're not playing on the field again. To what is it? 2033 is what the game is scheduled for. So they got to meet in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's down the way there. We go to Oklahoma, Texas. We got another trip to Washington. So
they're canceling those games.
You think they are?
Yeah, well, with Texas and Oklahoma going into the SEC, I would imagine that they're going to, with the Big Ten scrapping divisions and Michigan getting locked in, like all those things. Nothing against that great work that you did today to put in that the success, but I think Indiana, Michigan State, they are going to get a big break because they're not going to have to play Ohio State every year once they break up these divisions. The way it looks like it's going, it's not official, just like they don't have a expanded college football playoff yet, but that could happen next year. The divisions could be scrapped next year. I think both of those things, I would think the divisions being scrapped would happen before the college football expansion. But man, they were sitting there and they were talking about it. And then last year it looked like it was going to happen really quick. So these things can nowadays. We should sit around talking about it for years. They should pay the players, and it almost got to be so repetitive every off season that people are like, oh no, here we go again. You're going to be talking about this, talk about this every day for the last 20 years. And now, man, it's happening left and right. So, you'll have a new list maybe ready to go next month.
Yeah, we'll see how this division thing goes, Danny. I'll play Ohio State every year, but I just don't want to have to beat them twice. I'll leave it at that. That's the only standard I have for it. I do not want to have to beat them twice. One time should be enough. We'll play them every year, but I don't like to have to beat them twice.
Well, what you would like and what actually looks like going to happen, I think are going to be two different things. But I'm with you. Especially when your other rival, Michigan State's going to get a break every other year. But hey, when it happens, I'll be right there with you, standing in line to complain. There was some breaking news today with college football, and it's a little name, image, and likeness news, sports, business, and journal. If you like, the old baseball cards, the old trading cards, Fanatics is teaming up with Topps, and they're going to release both football and basketball, college football and college basketball cards. This fall. They've got the NIL trading card deals with over 100 schools and 200 athletes. So a few Michigan guys would be in there. If you had to pick, I don't know if you still get 300, 100 schools. If you had to pick 5 players, Scar, off of Michigan, who you think that they would give a trading card to, who would you pick? If Fanatics and Topps called and said, hey, we need the 5 most popular Michigan football players, who would you give them?
Well, that's just it. It's going to be the big name guys, the guys that throw and catch touchdowns.
Well, Mike Gorham's going to be one for sure.
Yeah. It would be the quarterbacks and Corum and maybe a guy like Eric All or.
I think All's a good one. Are you both quarterbacks? Or for McNamara is going to get one for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about McCarthy, but maybe. What wide receiver are you going? So we've already got 3. You can only give 2 more. Who's the most popular? I didn't ask you who the best.
Yeah.
What do you think the most popular wide receiver is?
It may be like the young guy Anthony. It might be
he looks the best. I'm not saying he is the best. I'm saying he looks the best in his uniform and.
It might be Ronnie Bell coming back, but
Zinter might be the best pro prospect out of any of them, but I don't know if they're going to give an interior offensive lineman a trading card.
That gets back to my point about what Michigan State's doing. Everybody's getting something, and not just the guys that score touchdowns. And those are the issues that really affect recruiting. But yeah, you got to go with the guys that are going to sell cards. Because they might not give one to Mozzie Smith, or Mike Morris.
No, they might give it to Will Johnson. You're right, over those 2 guys because he came in as the 5-star and people
there you go.
Yeah,
the guys that sell cards, but who's really helping us win championships? Maybe it's Uli. How about Uli, the center?
Aluskin, yeah.
There you go. But again, they want the big name guys.
But that's right. That's right. It's going to be tough. It's tough when it comes down to the QBs because you might have to give them 2. Here's Dees, who's got a message for you because he has your name listed in the message. You can always leave us a message in real time. We'll put it up on the screen. Dees saying, sounds like Scar is thinking that CJ wants to blaze his own trail. It's just that unfortunately his trail isn't very far away, Notre Dame, from one of his forefathers blazed, if you get my drift.
I understand that. Lloyd went to Missouri initially, and then I think he transferred to Northern Michigan. Yeah, Lloyd he'd been around. He had coached a couple different places. He was at Eastern Michigan. He was at Illinois when my brother was playing there. I understand Dee's point. I guess Dee, maybe he's not in love with what I'm saying about about the grandson, but who knows? Maybe, I could make the argument that the grandpa was a trailblazer, but he actually it fell into the job after the problem with Coach Mo. But I don't know. Would I like to see him go to Michigan? Yes, he's a good player. He's a highly recruited kid. He's from our state. Of course, I'd love to see him come here. Of course, I would. I'd be cheering him like crazy because I know his dad and his grandpa. But I don't know what he's going to do. Thank goodness Brian Kelly destroyed the rile of it. It would be really awkward. Brian Kelly was something, man. I'm going to tell a story. I got time for a quick story, Denny, about Brian Kelly?
Let me check. Yes.
Okay. I worked Michigan's camp for a long time. And all the MAC schools were in attendance. Every one of them. All of the Division II schools would be in attendance. They were there. They had coaches there. Ferris and Saginaw, Northwood, and all of them, Michigan Tech, all of them. And a bunch of little schools from all over the Midwest. There was one school that was never in attendance. Grand Valley. Grand Valley was not there during the Brian Kelly era. So I asked, I'm going to throw this out there. It's personal, confidential information, but I asked my buddy Jim Herman, who was the D coordinator at the time, who ran the camp.
All right.
I said, Herm, how come Grand Valley's never here? How come there's no Grand Valley coaches ever at this camp? And he looked at me and he said, and we always heard these rumors. We always heard about Brian Kelly when he was at Grand Valley getting kids from Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue. You remember he used to bring those guys in? I don't know if you remember it, but he had a tradition. He had a reputation of doing that. So he was not invited. Grand Valley was not invited to the Michigan camp because he was notorious for talking to players indirectly who may not have been playing much. You got me? The kid up at South Quad, he's a highly recruited kid. Now he's third string. Or the kid at Ohio State, he's not. You got it? So he was tampering, and that was the reputation. So he and that Grand Valley staff was not invited because I never forget how Jim Herman, my buddy, he said, he just shook his head and said, they're not going to be coming to our camp.
Hey, Scar, that's a great story. I want you to ask Jim Herman to validate a story that I heard, and I've heard it from more than one person, but it sounds incredible. Here's the story. The 1997 Michigan-Ohio State game at Michigan Stadium, two, I think, undefeated teams, one of the great games in Michigan history, right? And Charles Woodson had the punt return in that game. It's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So Herman's the defensive coordinator. He ended up winning the Broyles Award that year, I think. But if you look, Jim Herman doesn't show up to the sideline until late in that game. And the rumor is that Herman had left his play sheet or his back in the hotel. And rather than having somebody fetch him, he had to go with a police escort back to the hotel. And then after he was already there, ready to go, and I don't know, they run on the field. I don't know about the whole timing of that. But I hear that you could see, if you look close enough, Herman coming sliding in, maybe even missed the anthem, coming in there because he left his play sheet, back at the hotel.
I never heard the story, but Jim's a good friend of mine. You talk about recruiting. Jim Herman was my host on my recruiting trip. He showed me around. So, that relationship matters. I really I had a good relationship with him. I liked him. I trusted him. I don't know the answer to that story. It sounds legitimate. But Jim was a really good coach, good player at Michigan, and he's coached all over. And he was in that league, that one of the leagues that just folded last year or so.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't know if that's a true story. It could be, but he was a damn good coach, damn good player, and good man, good friend of mine.
Well, while we're talking, I'm going to tell a story here too, Scar, and you tell me what you think of this one. But don't tell Jim Herman this one, all right? Herman had a rough year. It might have been around 2000 or something, and they just didn't have a great year. And I was in Chicago. There was a small newspaper for the Big Ten coaches meeting, and this guy came up and said, "Hey, can I ask you a couple questions?" And I said, "Sure." I was working in radio in Ann Arbor, and it came down to the Michigan defense. And I was like, Michigan's got a Big Ten championship type offense, but the defense. And I said, anybody I was trying to be a positive towards Lloyd Carr. And I said, hey, anybody that wasn't as loyal as Lloyd Carr would have fired Jim Herman by now. I said that. I thought, okay. I mean, it was an honest answer. Well, the magazine that covers Michigan at the time comes up with this big blow up quote that says anybody that wasn't Carr would have fired Herman by now. And then it says my name underneath. I didn't see the magazine, but 20 years ago, once in a while, Carr would invite the media to practice. And I was one of only about 5 or 6 members of the media. So, it's an exclusive company. And I would call all the time, say, I want to go to practice. And they would never get back to me. So when they did, I'm thinking, this is great. I'm down here at practice. And I'm just out there on the sideline thinking, everything's great. I'm here watching practice. I'm big man on campus. I'm feeling pretty good. And then Carr is out in the middle of practice. And he's waving over. And he waves over to me. And I'm like, me? And I'm thinking, Carr wants me to. I'm going out in the middle of the field at Michigan practice. This is pretty awesome that he's singling me out. I'm thinking he's singling me out. He's going to be, hey, guys, you want to tell, 50 and any stories, anything. But that's not how he was bringing me out there. I got right up to him. He got right up into my face and started cussing me out left and right. Really, like you would see an umpire and a manager going face to face. He's in my face. He's telling me I'm an SOB and all the things. Riot act. And then Willie come back and said, I didn't say all of that. And that just heated him up more. It was one of those things where I got caught with my pants down. I thought for sure I was just sauntering out there. It was going to be like, maybe a pat on the back, but instead, I got an earful because of just like some throwaway comment that I gave to it was a very small newspaper, but it got carried by this Michigan magazine. And, it was in the, Schembechler Hall. And he said, you come into Schembechler Hall, you don't say anything about any of my coaches that way, or that's what you're going to get. So he made his point.
Yeah. I know when Jim was coaching, we used to talk, and I remember him talking about Ohio State, some of the good things that Tressel was doing and how hard they were to defend. And I remember, when the spread was getting popular, talking to Herm, and how difficult, because I remember we beat Northwestern like 50 to 40. Remember one time up there, there was a ton of points scored.
I think Michigan lost to him with Henson, and Damian Anderson ran wild. And all of that being said, Anthony Thomas fumbled the ball. Nobody even hit him. I think it was a 50 to 49 game that Michigan lost.
Yeah, well, that was the game where I remember, he said, hey, this spread stuff was new. And it was new at that time. And I remember talking to him, about some of the challenges defending that stuff. So, hey, Lloyd's going to defend this guy. You got to tell a story. So, you know what? It is what it is, man. Maybe that when I was playing, there wasn't no media at practice. Bo I think he used to let one guy, Wayne DeNeff. You remember Wayne DeNeff?
Did he go on to be the Big Ten commissioner?
No, it wasn't Wayne. It wasn't that Wayne DeNeff. It was Wayne something. There was one guy, I think he wrote with the Ann Arbor News. I think there was the only guy that was allowed to come to practice. Bo pretty much had a good handle on who was coming to practice. He didn't Wayne was the guy's name, not Wayne DeNeff. What the hell was his name? Anyway, he didn't have too many people coming into practice.
No. Lloyd said at one point, like, I thought I was supposed to have a hostile relationship with the media. And he learned that from Bo. I was with Bo, like with you, even if you were a student across the street, had like one of the upstairs flats that, he'd be putting up, he would be telling people, you can't be up there. They live there, hey, get down, like for the practice, or if they're up on the overpass.
I remember that, man. He would send, we'd be out there practicing, and he would send John Falk, go up there and see what's going on in that window up there. I saw that window, I love him for it, but he had the ultimate us against everybody mindset. That's the way he instilled his, he was building with his team, man. and that's okay.
Yeah, those are just fun stories.
Yeah,
all of that. All right, Scar, it's what are we in 87 days or something? Not that I'm counting. I see it. Michigan put out, and I know Josh Henschke and Trevor McHugh does a really good job with some of the graphics, and they'll find a former or current Michigan football player, and they'll count down the days. So I think we're at 87.
Yeah, we're hoping good things. We've got a lot of good people back. We just keep perfecting, and and just I wish we had a tougher, a real challenge in one of our preseason games, but we don't. Colorado State and whoever it is, but we'll have time to get a lot of depth and develop a lot of depth in those games, and be ready for the gauntlet. So we're ready to withstand injuries if we get them. So that's what we're building, and I know there's a lot of excited people, man. Oh, you know what else I wanted to talk about real quick, Denny, is Michigan just hired Freddie Jackson.
That's right.
And I know Freddie from way back. He's coached all over, but he was at Michigan. He was one of the guys that he was on Coach Muller's staff. He was on Coach Carr's staff, Rich Rod and Brady's staff. So he's the only guy that all of those guys kept. Freddie is a great guy, great recruiter, great coach. I worked the camp with him, spent a whole week with him. And, Michael Hart, he coached. A lot of those guys he recruited and coached. So Freddie will be a guy that when a kid comes on a recruiting trip to Michigan, he's going to meet Denard Robinson. He's going to meet Biff Poggi. He's going to meet, Doug Mallory. He's going to meet Fred Jackson. These guys aren't even coaches. They're just part of our team of recruiters that we have there that can, help make a difference in getting a guy to come to Michigan. So Freddie will be another guy, another voice that could possibly convince a kid to come to Michigan.
Scar, I got to tell you, way back in the day when I worked at Michigan, Fred Jackson was a coach. He was the running backs coach at Michigan, I think assistant offensive coordinator. But I always thought that he was just feeding me lines. Like he would always I'd say, hey, Fred, what do you think of, this kid coming in from Louisiana, the Louisiana touchdown machine? He said the A-Train, Anthony Thomas, he's going to be a great back, and he'd say he could catch the ball out of the backfield. And I'm like, oh, wow, Fred's really high in Anthony Thomas. The next guy would come in to be Chris Perry. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this Chris Perry is tough. You could give him the ball 50 times a game. And I'm like, all right. He's embellishing a little bit. Well, Chris Perry was a great back. And then when Mike Hart, who wasn't really heralded out of Onondaga, wherever, New York, wherever he came in from, and I'm like, what about the little guy? He's like, oh, this guy. Well, I'm going to tell you something about Mike Hart. And at that point, I'm thinking, every guy, can't be the greatest, running back of all time, Fred. But you know what? Fred was right on all those guys. He was actually shooting me straight. All of his guys were great. I just thought, that he was, giving me one of those, every single guy that came out of my mouth was great. They just all happened to be great.
Yeah, he's a high character coach, and he will be a factor down there, man. He was he was in high school coaching for the last 4 or 5 years because he was working at Ypsilanti with the guy I know, and he had because I was talking to him about high school coaching. It's a different deal, man. And he got a little taste of it, and but he's back with Michigan and as one of those analysts, and he will be a factor, man. He will be just like Denard. You come on a recruiting trip, you meet those guys. Those are guys that are going to contribute. Remember what I told you, Denny? When you come on a recruiting trip, you don't just meet one guy. You take in the whole scene, man. You meet a lot of people. It's not just the recruiting coordinator. It's you meet all these guys, and so it's all they're all hitting them with different guys coming to them, talking, and Freddie will be a factor.
Well, Scar, I want you to be a factor on our TikTok page. I'm going to call you out. You see some of the thumbnails here. I noticed that you're not following Maize and Blue Review on TikTok, so I want to get that done. I also want to encourage everybody to give the gift of the Maize and Blue Review. Join up. It's a great gift. You're a Michigan fan. You should be there anyways. It's night and day. What Scar and I have just talked about for the last hour, that's going on all day, all night. Maize and Blue Review. So join up there. And be like Scar. I'm going to keep pushing him. I don't think he's going to do it this week. And if he doesn't do it this week, I'm going to be pushing him next week to get TikTok up there and follow Maize and Blue Review. So, Scar, great job. Anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to get to?
No, we got a chance with CJ. We'll find out. We'll see what he does. I'd love to see him at Michigan. I just want to make that point. I would love to see him at Michigan. Don't know what he's going to do. I understand if he comes with us, I get it. If he goes somewhere else, I get it. But go Blue. See you next week.
All right, there he is, Jim Scarcelli. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow at